So the pilot lands us on this lake that has no name, and he goes, "Okay, the fires aren't here yet. So, but use your satellite communication to call me in if you need help." Thank goodness we had that, right? Because but what happened was we had to alter our plan. I didn't know anywhere where we're going, and it drove me insane that I didn't have any control over this trip. But what happened, and you love this part, is that the portages that were supposed to be cut that he found in an old book didn't exist. Imagine this. It took us 6 days to travel 4 kilometers.
Holy smokes. Oh, boy.
It's going to be a good show.
We have got a great show today. A good friend of ours will be joining us, Kevin Callan, the happy camper.
Oh, my God.
And that scares the hell out of you because all you're thinking is, oh, my God, I'm in the middle of nowhere. This is the end, right?
Yeah.
This is it for me.
The only anxiety was at night when you worried about the fires coming. Because and there was one night where the moon came up and it was a fire moon, but we actually thought it was the forest igniting. And we were
obviously, when you're that deep into it, any wild animal stories? Did you see anything, hear anything?
So I could not fathom what this thing was. I went back and talked to some biologists, and they're like, "Yeah, we have no clue what you just saw."
Oh wow, that's
really.
This episode of Outdoor Journal Radio is brought to you in part by the Invasive Species Centre, protecting Canada's land and water from invasive species. Freedom Cruise Canada, rent the boat, own the memories. J&B Cycle and Marine, your home for all things power sports, boats, and equipment. And Sail, the ultimate destination for your outdoor adventures. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you once again for joining us. Outdoor Journal Radio, the podcast. Peter Bowman.
Hello.
Angelo Viola.
Hello.
I'm going to switch it to Angelo. I'm going to shorten it up.
Angelo Viola. It just sounds kind of, because it's
bad.
been so, because Angelo was etched into our minds.
The more authoritative, like
Angelo.
it's more complete, isn't it? It's like you want to, when you hear that, you kind of want to pay attention.
There's a bunch of bullshit.
Thank you, Jim. I won't even blame Dean for that one. That was Jim coming at you live there.
This is what I live with, folks. Every day of my life, except when I'm off, which is not near enough.
There's a bunch of bullshit.
That too.
Yeah, Jim Gunda's on to you, buddy. He's on to you.
Oh, boy, oh, boy.
It's going to be a good show.
We have got a great show today. A good friend of ours will be joining us after his absence. Dean, how long has it been since he's been on?
It's been 2 years. Episode 64?
Or 44.
44, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 44.
Yeah, don't let accuracy stand in the way of
so 100 episodes ago.
100 episodes ago, Kevin Callan, the happy camper, will be joining us with some interesting news. He's also...
He's a character, man. He's such a character.
Just came back from an insane trip I'm dying to hear about. He did one of those once in a lifetime, even for him.
Yeah. As hardcore as he is.
Portage. I think they portage something like 200 miles or some stupid thing like that. I don't even know. Anyways, he's an award-winning national magazine editor, writer. He's written books, 18 books actually. So he's quite an accomplished author. He's listed as one of the, this is interesting, top 100 modern-day explorers by the Canadian Geographical Society.
Wow.
I didn't even know that existed.
I wonder if they rate us as anything.
Sure
you think they do.
do.
The Canadian Geographical Society?
I guarantee you they rate you. Guarantee you.
What do they rate me, Angelo? What's the category and what's my number?
An R rating. They give you an R rating.
Do not go camping with that guy.
Parental guidance rating. So yeah, he'll be joining us in a couple of minutes, and if it's anything like previous trips for Callan to join us, it usually will be a long one. He's got some great stories.
Yeah, but he's always going. He keeps you interested, right? He's
sure.
he's a good speaker.
First, Fishing Canada, the store, shop.fishingcanada.com. The goodies, the new stuff is there now.
That's
as
the
we
old
speak.
stuff there,
Yeah, I
but-
know the new stuff. I'm just pointing because I'm hoping they can insert.
Is it on our
insert
site?
new stuff.
The new stuff? Is
No,
it?
it's not even here yet. I just saw it the other day. Oh my god!
I saw the artwork and I'm liking it. It's
Oh my
looking pretty
god!
cool.
The boys did a great job on that.
Yep.
Absolutely outstanding. That is going to be award-winning merchandise. Let me tell
Wow!
you right now.
I mean, the National Canadian Geographical Society is going to rate us as best
top,
hoodies in the
hoodies in the world.
Oh,
I'm
nice.
predicting that. I'm predicting
Nice.
that right now.
Nice.
Along with all kinds of other things, not the least of which are great bonus offers right now. Buy this, get that, and do this, and
Really?
get that. Like just really, it's an exciting time to go to shop.fishingcanada.com or
Hey,
fishingcanada.com store.
And it's also getting close to Christmas as we record this.
right.
So that's you know what I mean? It might be a good little stopover for you to get a couple of presents for somebody. Or for yourself.
It's the gateway to your next fishing adventure. That's it.
I
Thank
teed
you.
that up for you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Dino. I really do. Sometimes you don't think I do, but I do. Listener feedback. This is an interesting one.
Oh, look at that picture.
There he is.
There's the feedback right there.
Listener feedback from Cody Goodchild via Facebook.
We just had the thing from Cody, didn't we, Dean? I think.
Cody? I don't think
that
so.
sounds
I
very
don't
familiar.
remember. I don't remember that.
Good child. Good. So anyway, sorry, Cody, if you didn't, but if you did, good man. Keep
Cody
coming.
Goodchild says, if you had Cronzy on every week, we would all watch every week.
Does he mean the Outdoor Journal radio
watch.
podcast,
Maybe.
or does he
He
mean
commented
Fishing Canada
on
show?
I think he commented on our last podcast, the Moose.
Yeah.
That was the Moose podcast.
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah, that
yeah.
name's familiar. But anyways, I wonder if Cody, if you're listening here, do you mean the Fishing Canada show or the YouTube version of this show? So.
I was talking to Daryl about 2 weeks ago.
Oh boy!
Oh God!
Come on, you gotta let us all in on this because I haven't heard.
It's just, we talk once every couple of months, 3 months, sometimes 6 months will go by and we don't. But generally, every couple of months, we have chats, and it's funny because first of all, Daryl has the mannerism of, I don't know, a slate rock.
He's not the goat; it's a goat. He's got the mannerism of a goat.
He's got manners of a goat. Thank you. Like, it's not, hey, how you doing? What's going on?
Oh, right off the hop,
I
right?
pick up the phone. I
Yeah.
know it's him, obviously. I pick up the phone and say, hello? So, remember
Yeah,
that?
He does that every time, doesn't he?
Whoa.
He never. That's one thing about Daryl. He never says hi. Hey, how you doing, buddy? Never.
Whoa, already.
He's the best.
And then I say,
no pissing around for Daryl.
hi, Daryl. How are you doing? Okay. But anyway, so when we were, and he's just going on like a
That's what I
madman.
love about him in a way. So he's unique, that's for sure.
I have to take a rest after I get off the phone with
Oh,
him.
God.
I need time off, like 15, 20 minutes to recover. God bless him. Wonderful
He's the
guy.
best, man. He's the best.
He obviously, it'd be great to have him on the show on a regular basis even. But the problem is Daryl is so far removed from anything that looks, smells, feels, has a texture of work that you could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
If it could be work, he doesn't want to do
Because
it.
I'll tell you what, would he ever be good in our podcast network? Imagine him had his own show. Oh, if you could get him to, submit a bunch of stuff.
I've asked him a million.
Yeah,
He
he'd have one wicked ass podcast for sure.
He won't do it.
No.
I'm going to ask him again. The hell with it. Now that I tell him that Cody Goodchild wants to have his own show on.
Just call him President Goodchild. He'll say, who? You think he's got some royalty or something going on there, and then he'll be good. Okay.
Thank you, Cody. We'll pass that on to our good friend Daryl Cronzy. Conservation Corner, Mr. Bowman, please.
Our constant talk, our constant reminders to
Thank
everybody
God.
about the grass carp, one of 4 species of Asian carp, is our big concern, and as well with the Invasive Species Centre.
And it's brought to you by the Invasive Species Centre.
Oh, that's right. That's why we're doing this, right? We're trying to work in conjunction with them, and trust us. It's we're working with them, but this is a concern to Ange and I, and it should be a concern to everybody in the world of fishing and in the world of cottaging, in the world of anything that you do with water, these fish are out there, and there's a possibility of them coming here right now. The grass carp obviously is this hoover. He eats up the weeds, he eats up the aquatic vegetation, he eats the zooplankton, he eats up everything that our fish need to keep them going. So
about 40% of its body weight, in fact, is consumed on a daily basis. So if you
which
had
is insane.
10,000 of these fish in a body of water,
bye-bye.
And they were only 5 pounds each, that is a lot. I can't do the math on that one without
That'd be
getting
about
my
2
machine
pounds,
out.
two maybe.
But that'd be a lot of vegetation
A
that's
day.
going to be eaten on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So you can see why the concern is there by the authorities, and it should be by us as well. We need to be vigilant. The best thing we can do is arm ourselves with the knowledge. Arm ourselves with, first of all, being able to identify these critters, because they're not easy to identify. Carp is carp is carp to most people. And this is just one of many species of carp. You need to learn how to identify this critter, and the best place to do that, Mr. Bowman?
AsianCarp.ca. Just go to AsianCarp.ca and download the imagery and put it in your... See, because that right there, that's confusing to me, that picture right there. That kind of looks like a Cisco to me or something like that. You know what I mean? So you got to really get these pictures, download the pictures, look at them closely, and then obviously you're not going to mistake a Cisco for an Asian carp. But I'm just saying that kind of looks, unfamiliar to me. So
what we've done is actually taken an image off of their site, AsianCarp.ca, and we've laminated it, and it's on FNC1. It's under the front lid.
Now.
Under the
wow,
front lid.
that's where you've been, because that's where I was on FNC2 all year. You hid that from me.
I know.
You know what I just thought of? Would be a fantastic idea, and we're going to do this. I'm going to do this. Is that on our Garmin units, you can add images in your Garmin units.
You can?
You can.
What?
We're going to put a couple of images of grass carp
Wow.
on our Garmin so that you don't have to look at your phone or anything like that. You can,
Wow.
An image.
Dean, did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Like, how does
I
he
thought I
get
was the
this
tech guy.
information without us knowing?
I don't know. They must be sending him notes.
Wow.
Now, for me to follow through with that is a whole different story. Dean, do you remember 3 years ago when Bowman said he was going to put that image on that Fishfinder for you?
Oh my God, that would be a great idea. Do that,
It is,
and then I will let you in on the
laminated,
laminator machine that the Countess of Sandestesh has stored away in a secret place.
I won't need it now,
because she doesn't want it used.
I won't need it. Mine's going to be more waterproof than yours. It's going to be right in that waterproof Garmin unit.
That's a good point. Good point. In the news, if you haven't seen this story, this broke nationally on mainstream media, which is pretty unusual that it jumps on anything outdoors. Mainstream media, I'm talking about. But this broke on mainstream media about the 3,000 tags that are left unclaimed each year in Ontario.
Moose tags.
Moose tags.
Yeah.
Well, what other tags are there?
There's deer tags, right?
Yeah, there's tags
deer
for everything.
tags.
Oh.
Tags for turkeys.
Yep.
Tags. For,
I should have some of those here. Where can I get where can I get turkey tags? Because I'm in need of about a dozen of them around here. So there's one right there. He's the king turkey.
Thank
And
you.
he sounds like one. He acts like one.
I pretty much am one, just to let everybody know.
This was originally reported by Sudbury.com before it went mainstream. The province well, first of all, Dean, correct me if I'm wrong, because you are our resident moose hunting expert,
Yeah.
from what I understand. Have you ever been moose hunting?
I moose hunt a lot, but I never get a tag. So
You've never got a tag.
I used to get calf tags all the time because that was like the default. So
Right.
Have they officially done away with that?
Yeah,
Right?
2021 they
Thank
switched
God.
that. Yeah.
Thank God. But anyways, I guess they have a certain number of tags, and those tags are based on the population density in those areas, because obviously every area has a different population density of moose. So based
Right.
on that area, they'll say,
Exactly.
and I don't even know what the numbers are. We had some folks on the program here a few episodes ago, kind of detailing a study that they're working on to fine tune those counts. But let's just say, whatever, there's 100 moose determined to be in a certain area, then they'll say, well, you know what, we can comfortably harvest 12 of those moose a year. So we're going to allocate 12 tags to this area in the hopes that, well, I shouldn't say in the hopes, but the theory behind this type of allocation is that not all those 12 tags are going to yield
Right.
a harvest
Right,
moose.
because not everybody's successful at hunting.
Exactly.
Right? Just like-
So, and I don't know what the percentage is, but let's just, for the sake of argument, say 50%.
Dean, is this just bulls? Is it cows?
This
or-
is all of them.
All moose.
Yeah, all moose.
and calves too?
Yep. There's some, there
Okay.
are some calf tags.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they just go along the assumption that a certain percentage of these tags are going to yield a harvested moose, right? Well, they're finding out now that not only is that not happening, but these tags aren't even being claimed. And maybe you can further enhance that.
Yeah, so in
Dave.
2020, so before 2021, you just applied for a moose tag, and then it was like random allocation, they called it. And if you weren't successful in that, so if you weren't successful in getting either a bull tag or a cow tag, you got a calf tag just as like a
Do you know how they did that?
free
Was
tag.
it like a draw out of a...
Well, I
totally
was going to
random.
say, is this like your 45-gallon oil
exactly
drum?
like
the same
that.
idea? They
That's
have
where
one
I
of
got
those?
it from.
That's where you got
Yeah,
the
that's
idea
where
from.
Dean
Okay,
stole
so
it
you
from
put
them,
it in
okay.
there, and then you reach in, you pull it out and say, okay,
Yeah.
I got it. All right.
But so I guess they were getting a lot of complaints because people who had like been applying every year, they were just not successful ever, and they would just stop like hunting pretty much. So in 2021, they implied like a point system where when you're not successful in a moose draw, you acquire another point for next year. So essentially, you get your name in the hat.
Makes it
twice or three
easier.
times or four
Yeah, it
times.
makes it easier to get a tag this if you're
Yeah.
not successful. Okay.
Should you not be doing that for the contest, the fishingcanada.com
So if you're not successful,
contest?
you get more entries.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of nice actually.
I think that'd be a great idea. Everybody who doesn't win a nice Garmin unit, for example, or one of those Mercury motors that are being put up on the site now, or any, if you don't win, you're going to give them an extra. I don't know.
And if you win the contest, you can still come back again, but your odds are way down.
Yeah, we just take away from you then.
Yeah,
I love that.
that's
idea.
a good idea.
Yeah. Make it all even. It's like Timbits hockey. Everybody wins.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be any sense of failures.
But there are some issues here that they're finding, so we may.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
we may
Carry on.
run into
I was
some
just
same
thinking out loud.
problems.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So you're saying.
So essentially, right now they do an initial draw where everyone with points applies. Theoretically, the people with the most points would get their option at the tag.
Right.
If you don't claim your tag, it goes back into the pot, and then there's a second draw where you don't lose your points if you get a tag there. So in the first round, if you take your tag, now your points are gone. You get your
Right.
so you get
You
your
go
tag
to-
for
Yeah,
this year.
so that next
go to
year
the
somebody else
bottom.
can get
Exactly.
it. Right.
But for
Okay.
the second draw, if you take your tag there, which is all the tags that are left over, you don't lose your points.
And if you're successful,
Yep.
so you claim your tag,
Yep.
and you're successful, then your chances of getting another tag in the next couple of years is slim to none.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, but if you claim your tag and you don't harvest a moose, you're still okay. Next year, you'll probably get a tag again.
No, it's all about claiming the tag. So some people will be like, so let's say I was successful this year, and then I found out we're in New Brunswick in October, and I know I'm not going to be able to hunt. I can decline to claim the tag, and then my points are safe. But now the tag that I would have had, it goes back into the pot for the second round of people.
That's what they're trying to get now, or is that
That's what is happening now.
is that happening now? Okay.
But the problem that they're having now is that in the second draw, you don't have to actually claim your tag until the moose season starts. But what they're having happen is these tags are sitting there all year, and then when the moose season starts, people don't claim them, and then there's all these tags left over that no one's using, which in this case was 3,000 tags.
Wow.
Which is unfair to those that want to hunt, right?
It's very fair for the moose. I'll tell
Yeah.
you, the moose.
Yeah, it's good.
The moose should get together and
Yeah.
high five whoever
Yeah.
made. Wow,
No,
that's-
Bullwinkle love that.
Oh
And
my God.
what I think's happening is probably people are getting their friends who are not that active into hunting to apply, like hoping to just increase the odds. And then these people aren't checking up on if they're getting tags or not.
I'm not going to mention any names.
Wow.
But the reason I was asking those questions, because it seems to me, I've got people that I know that seem to get moose tags every year.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
Yeah, if you're applying to like way northern Ontario,
Right.
there's tons of tags up there, and you can probably get one. Like even like, I don't want to say specific zones, but there are certain zones that if you're willing to travel up there, you'll get a moose tag.
You'll just get one.
Yeah, pretty much.
Whereas the
makes
areas
sense.
that have maybe smaller populations of moose and maybe more density in terms of human beings,
Yeah.
probably your chances of getting a lot of tags is slim to none.
Yeah, exactly. You're all fighting for like, a handful of tags.
Yeah, but even travel time would make sense. Right? Those ones that you're talking about, they're easy. That's a 2-day drive to get up there, probably, right? Like we do, but even more, whatever. Like, so, whereas you can go to Bancroft here in 2 hours, sort of thing like that. And if there's moose around Bancroft, I'm assuming there is. But
And these 3,000 tags, are they from all over the province, or is there one geographical area?
So they're from all over, so that's why it's a little misleading, because this may be some people who are applying to the north and they're getting a tag, and then they're like, "There's no way I'm getting up there in October. Like I'm just not going to be up there." Some of these tags are also for like cows and calves, so maybe people applied and they got a calf tag and then they just never claimed it because they don't want it. But they have announced that quite a few of these tags are bull tags in prime hunting areas. So, like, these are tags that people would have wanted.
Yeah.
They're just not being claimed.
huh?
I can't even imagine
Does
that.
do you know if this goes on in other provinces? If they have this issue at all?
I
Or
don't
is
know.
it-
When I lived in BC, a moose tag was over the counter. So
No kidding.
Yeah, you just bought it like at Canadian
you very much.
Tire. It was
Wow.
not a draw.
But
so.
they must have had a certain number. They couldn't just keep selling them.
Yeah, but
crazy.
they'd probably. have a
I
number.
think you probably like in the case of deer down here, you don't have to apply for a draw. You can just buy a tag over the counter.
Still.
Yep, and that's probably because they look at the number of hunters, the number of deer, and figure even if every single hunter bought a tag, it wouldn't make a dent in this thing. We just have so many deer. That's what I'm assuming is probably happening.
Yeah.
But for moose, that's just not the case. If every hunter in Ontario wanted to hunt a moose, we'd have some serious problems.
Right.
Yeah.
This is interesting.
It does seem that there is a lot more deer hunters, let's say, than moose hunters out there.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Well, it gets
Just the guys I
easier,
know.
less expensive,
Yeah.
closer.
Yeah.
Like there's all kinds of.
Oh boy, I'll tell you what.
I think you and I need to maybe go up and
Go
see if
apply?
we can check one of them out.
We might want to learn how to shoot a gun first.
Well, we'll hire somebody. We'll just go watch.
Hitman.
A moose hitman. Well, there's Dean's job. Dean can shoot it for us. Well,
Do you know how
I
many?
think I could pop one pretty good. I think I used to be good with a rifle.
I don't know whether
so
I could. I often fantasize over that the whole hunting thing. I've told you that
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
And not that there's anything wrong with it. In fact, get me one of them babies. I'll chew that baby up all the time.
Oh, yeah.
But I think I'd have a hard time pulling that trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if
Just something.
I
I
was
don't know.
designated, if I was in my mind I was going to shoot a moose, I could do it. And I feel like I'd be accurate enough with a gun. I don't know, like a bow. Well, with those bow hunters, those guys are good. They're skilled. I mean, not to say gun hunters aren't skilled either, but that bow thing, man, you got to get really close. And
I'd like to
gotta
send
be
you
deadly.
in there with a loincloth and a jackknife.
You'd just like to see me in a loincloth. That's all. You sick son of a bitch.
Fan question of the week, kiddies, brought to you by fishfindermounts.com. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Somebody sent me a message the other day that saw I don't even know where they saw an image of our boat from this year and said, "What in the hell are you guys up to now?" He says, "Are you electroshocking those fish?" I said,
Oh,
"What are
my
you
God.
talking about?" He said, "I just saw an image of your boat, your shooting boat this year. You got probes hanging out all over the place on this thing." So I had to explain it to him that those, in fact, are the fishfindermounts.com apparatuses that we use to hang our Garmin transducers.
That's correct.
Oh,
That's
my
funny.
God. And
That
yeah,
is
he
funny.
really thought we
because
were
I'll tell you
probing.
what, it does look pretty. As a matter of fact, it's funny you're saying this because I'm writing one of the articles and I was getting the imagery and we talked about it on one of the shows. So I thought, okay, and I looked at an aerial view of our boat and it's like, oh my
That's what
God.
he
look at
said.
this
It was
friggin'
an
arm
aerial
thing.
view that he saw. He says, "Are you guys shocking fish?"
Oh my God.
He says, "Because there's a picture out there." He didn't tell me where he got it, but he must have got it off somewhere, some site.
that's
He said, "Are
funny.
you guys electroshocking fish now?"
That is funny.
We're
Oh my
not.
God.
It's fishfindermounts.com, and if you want to get more information on what we're doing, go check them out. It has certainly changed the way we use sonar and electronics everything on our boat, even to the mounting apparatuses for the screens, of which now we have to have, God forbid, can you have one screen on the boat? We have to have 4 screens on the boat. So you need ways of hanging those screens on your boat, man. And that's what fishfindermounts.com does. And it does it very, very eloquently, may I add.
Come on now.
Conveniently. Anyways, this question is from Nino from Ontario via email, info@fishingcanada.com. Is probably the easiest way to do it. But you can do it through Facebook or Fishing Canada Instagram as well.
I wish I could do that.
What's that?
Just what you just said. I wish, okay, you want me to do a script? I don't even know how.
You do so. If you had to get through to something,
I couldn't
somehow, somewhere.
.com, I could.
You're a single man, and there's a hot girl, and she says, Angelo, get through my Instagram.
Wait a minute.
How you doing?
Wait a minute. I resemble that remark.
Exactly. Anyways, Nino's question is not Nuno, right? Nuno is one of my favorite guitar players. Nuno Betancourt, by the way, just to let you know. But
Who the hell is that?
Oh my God, he's such a good. Anybody? You want to watch a good guitar player?
Let me guess.
Old school? No. Okay.
Hardcore, metal, shit, and all that stuff.
Nah, the band Extreme. They can play everything like that, but there's more of a rock. Okay, but anyway, the guy's just one of the best guitar players in the world still.
Oh boy.
But older school, not the new kids coming up and all that. This guy's
so he's a little older. He's our age.
Nah, he's not our age, but he's just old school player.
Oh.
A song by Nuno Betancourt that you can listen to is a song called "Get the Funk Out."
Oh,
and his solo in that song will tell you everything you need to hear about that guitar player right there. There you go. There's my recommendation.
Are you getting a kickback from that?
No, I just Nuno is he's good.
Just curious, because if you are, I'm not complaining.
Get the funk out, Angelo.
I would like a little piece of that.
Get the funk out of here. Would you? Nino's question was, I was fishing Lake St. Clair for the first time, and I was just wondering how it works when you're fishing close to borders. So Lake St. Clair is on the U.S.-Canada border. What are the rules when someone from Canada fishes close to the United States, or even fishing close to a neighboring province? Do you need to buy an American license or even a non-residential license to be on the safe side? That's a great question. Great
one
question.
That we have a bit of experience with.
Yep.
For example,
in both of those examples.
St. Lawrence River obviously runs through both Canada and U.S. And so we usually play it safe and get an American license, as well as obviously the Canadian, or I shouldn't say that, Canadian, because there's no such thing. The Ontario and Quebec license, if we're going to go all the way down at the other end. You can do all this stuff online now. So the nice thing about that is that you can make those decisions almost on the water.
Right.
We take it one step further in that area. And keep in mind, most of the map images that you get on your sonar units nowadays have got a clear line where, so you can't, gone are the days where you can say, well, how do you know if you're on the American side? Well, let me tell you, if you don't know, you're Ray Charles. That's all I can tell you, because
good point.
They're very, very clearly marked
and
identified. And so you just pick up the phone and you call them, and within, 3.5 minutes, you have got a license number that will allow you to fish in those jurisdictions that you otherwise can't.
Right. And what Angelo is ultimately saying is that if you are going to the U.S., fishing in U.S. waters over that borderline, you need that state's license. So be it where he said Lake St. Clair, so is that Michigan?
That's Michigan, yeah.
Michigan. So you would need a Michigan license along with your Ontario license, even if you're fishing it for 1 hour.
Doesn't matter.
You don't take the chance. If you cross that border, you have to have that license.
Curious though, if you don't catch a fish and you're not fishing, you're cool.
Yep.
Like they can't just, like the U.S. Coast Guard or whoever they deploy, if there's somebody breaking the law in their water, like they can't just come and question you and then charge you if you're on American water.
If you're boating only?
Well, I'm boating. I'm on the trolling motor.
Right.
I've got a rod in my hand. I guess, like at what point would you be breaking the law?
Well,
you have to have a fish in your possession?
No, as long as you're fishing, the angling, you need a fishing license. So if you're fishing, you're breaking the law if you don't have a license.
I have a rod in my hand, I'm standing on the deck of the boat, and I'm on the trolling motor, and I'm looking for stuff. I'm fishing.
Is your line's not in the water? You're saying?
No, I'm looking for stuff.
Fine line, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I would say, why wouldn't you just drop your rod down on the boat and have it sitting beside you like that and looking?
Well, okay, so whether I have it in my hand or sitting here beside me, am I fishing or am I not fishing?
You'd have a discussion with the old CO on that one, or the DNR guy.
See, here's my point I'm trying to make. Don't try and pull one off like I just mentioned this scenario. If you're heading to the U.S. from Canadian water with the intention that if things work out, you're going to be fishing, just get a license.
Get your license. Yeah.
It's not the end of the world.
Yeah. And one step further on that one, on the Canada-U.S., you do not need your U.S. passport or your Canadian passport, a passport to go across onto the U.S. waters.
No.
You can fish with your license. You don't need your passport. However, you touch land over there, you need your passport.
Big time.
So keep that in mind, too. You don't have to have your passport on you. Oh, I forgot my passport. No, you can fish without your passport as long as you have the license. The other part of that question, which is very interesting, is province borders. Ottawa River is a perfect example. Quebec one side, Ontario the other side. If you're an Ontarian and you have an Ontario fishing license, you can fish the Quebec side. You can fish all waters, and I'm sure it's vice versa. Don't quote me on that. I know as an Ontarian, we can fish in the Quebec side, and I think it's a reciprocal thing with the governments. However, that's in a boat. On shore, if you were an Ontarian and you went over and you fished off the shoreline of Quebec, you need a license. You need to have a license for that. You need to buy that non-resident license, I guess, like that. So you have to keep that in mind, too.
Yeah, sometimes it's a bit of a slippery slope. Getting back to the St. Lawrence, for example, sometimes there are hidden jurisdictions that require licenses as well.
Oh, yeah.
Usually First Nations communities.
We've had to buy 4 licenses in that tournament. We had Ontario, New York, Quebec, and First Nations in that tournament.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but is there not 2 separate First Nations jurisdictions, one up and one down?
No, I don't think there was. I think it was. I love the way they come up to you though in the boat. They get the best boat on the whole river, man. I'll tell you what. You think the cops got good boats? No, the First Nations got the best boats going. They just come up to you and they say, "Hey, have you got your First Nations license?" We say, "Yes, you do." You show it, or say, "No, we don't." Say, "Okay, give me your money." You buy it right there. It's
right
like a $10 or $20 license or
cheap.
something like that. It was great, but it was so funny seeing that. And now the other thing about going back to that, very quickly, we needed 4 licenses, but again, it's a bordering water, Ontario, Quebec. We didn't need the license to fish in Quebec. We needed the license to weigh our fish in Quebec because the tournament site was in Quebec.
So
we had to bring our bass into that on land, so we had to have a license for that. So.
Just check the rules. They're very well documented on the various websites that represent the jurisdictions. And like I said, most of them, it's a real simple phone call away and you're licensed.
Jamie Pastilli, one of our podcasters, he says that if you're fishing a back bay, you're an Ontarian and you're way back in the back bays of Quebec, he says you might get hassled by the Quebec COs over there. He says you better watch yourself, but you'll probably get out of it. But he says if you're in there pretty deep, watch yourself. So.
All right, as promised, you know him as the happy camper. We know him as Kevin Callan. He is, to say he's the consummate outdoorsman would probably be understating it. But this guy, I think, could probably live for a year without conventional food.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he'd pull it off.
We're about to find out. Welcome to the program, Kevin. It's been a long time, buddy.
Yeah, it has. Life has been kind of crazy and good and bad and everything everywhere. Yeah, but I've been in the woods a lot.
We want to hear all of it. We want to hear the whole thing.
The whole story, especially the bad. We want to, because Kevin Callan, the happy camper, happy can't have bad too much going on. You know what I mean? So we want to hear it all, bud.
Let me tell the folks, first of all, if they're not familiar with you, you've been the face of camping in this country. Well, ever since I can remember, you and I started talking about it on the old radio show on the Fan 590 on Rogers years ago. And even back then, you were kind of doing those crazy. I remember having you on the air live a few times where you were camping in the dead of winter. I'll never forget one. It was like February, and you were in a yurt someplace and doing the show with me. So you've gone way beyond just the normal camper for sure.
Yeah, winter camping is way beyond. If you ask me, it looks cool, but it's beyond. That's for sure.
I do remember doing one interview years ago, and I just moved to my old house in Birchnorth, and I was paddling back to it. I was doing a trip paddling back, and you guys hooked up with me when I was on the trip.
Yeah.
And I remember, I don't even think I told you about it, but it was, I'm in the bug shelter, and I'm sitting there talking to you, and I look over and I'm pulling 3 ticks out of my arm.
Oh God!
No, you didn't.
No, you didn't say that. No.
That's got to be a problem. I mean, back when you and I started in this business, you very seldom heard about ticks and tick bites. But as an outdoorsman, as a camper, it's got to be a big deal right now.
Oh my God!
Isn't it?
Yeah.
The crazy thing is, I just got back from a trip yesterday. I was out on my last canoe trip of the year. It's getting pretty cold, but we brought a hot tent to go, one of those canvas tents with a wood stove, right? And so it's pretty cold out, so we're not worried about ticks. So we didn't put a floor down. We just slept on the ground. And sure enough, that tent got warm, and you can see the ticks crawling up towards my sleeping bag.
No way.
Yeah.
We never even used to, whoever even worried about that.
Well, I mean, just walking in the bush as a kid, or my dad and I used to do a lot of partridge hunting, a lot of grouse hunting, and walking the old roads and in the bush. And you never thought about it back at, that's 30 years, 40 years ago, sort of thing like that. But you never even knew what a tick was. Couldn't spell tick.
Well, maybe we didn't know. Maybe that was it, Kevin. Maybe we just, ignorance was bliss back then.
Yeah.
And now we know so much, like we're just inundated with information. Maybe that's why.
Well, they are coming up more from the south, but when I've traveled places where they were norm, like Adirondacks or even Quetico, they don't have the dog tick there, or whatever. But you basically you pulled off the ticks at night before you went in the tent, and if you had more, you got more whiskey.
Oh, that's a good deal. Oh God, give me some ticks.
All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes. First of all, there's am I understanding this correctly? There's a bit of a career change going on right now in your life?
Yeah, like I've always been a writer and worked in film and stuff I worked on CBC, and I still did that. I was the happy camper. But during that time, for 35 years, I taught part-time at Stanford Lebanon College. And for a number of years, I taught students at risk species, like how to identify trees, fish, and stuff like that, right? And, there were high school guys aren't doing well. So if they actually passed my class, they went right into college, and then they did well. They excelled. And so just this year, college decided to cut over 80% of the programs for various reasons we won't want to get into. But basically, a lot of them were environmental programs. And I didn't lose my job, but they cut, because I was part-time, they cut my hours severely and gave it to full-timers. So I just quit. I said, okay, bye. I'm done. Good luck to you. And my students have been in good hands. Like I was worried about that. I lost sleep over that. But what happened is I did that sort of thing that everybody does. You went out to the woods to heal. Right, because I had to sell my house, I had to move, and now it's great because I'm moving. I live near Kingston now. My partner Christine, she lives here, so I don't have to drive here every bloody weekend. So that's good. Learning how to fish here. I mean, I knew the Kawarthas inside out, right? But I don't know anything about the Frontenac area. Well, I do know now. I've even got to the point where I'm hiding spots that I find.
Whoa, look at you.
Yeah.
By the way, Big Brother Reno lives in Kingston. You and him ought to hook up. And
there you go.
Hey?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That'd be a nice combo.
Buddy, you're in a phenomenal fishing and hunting area there. I grew up there in that area, and you just go north of Kingston, and you go east or west a little bit, and it is out of this world. It's as good or better than where you were. I'm going to say better.
I would even say better because it's also good to change up and actually go and investigate new areas and not get mundane, right? You don't have to familiar. And just 2 weeks ago, I was out with my buddy and the Paddleheads. They got a YouTube channel, and every year we have a fish contest. These are young guys that have every single lure possible, fish finders, depth finders, and we're in the canoes, and they look at me, and I got just one rod and a few jigs, and I win. And they're like, where's your fish finder? I went, me, there's the fish right over there. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, we went in this area this time because usually we go where they live. So they came over to where I did. And I got to say, I did lose this time. I caught a 19-inch pike, which is a big pike, but we're going by size this time. And they're all catching some bass, but they weren't going over 19 inches. So you didn't get species specific. So I'm going to be winning this trophy. We actually have a trophy. And 5 minutes before we called it, it was getting dark. The one guy, he caught 21-inch largemouth. So that one.
Oh, that's a
huge.
biggie.
That's
a good one. Oh,
I've never seen a guy so excited. In fact, he was so excited. His partner, which is a metalhead guy, really tough guy, he gives him a big kiss on the mouth. He was so excited.
That's different.
Oh, God, that's awesome.
You mentioned young guys, Kevin. In your business, is it a young man's sport, or is there a growing interest from people, say, our age, gravitating a little bit more towards outdoors and camping? Are you noticing a shift at all?
Yeah, it's a mix actually. So you have what the diehard guys I call the chili hats, the beards, and the bellies, right? That have always done it, and then you've got also the young people that are just starting into it, and which called YouTube love festers, like they're all Instagrammers and stuff like that. And then you got a mix. Because during the shows in Toronto this year, a lot of the speakers were young YouTubers. Right. And a lot of the old guard came up to me and said, Kevin, you better do something about this. These people have no clue what they're doing. They just have a YouTube channel. And I kind of laughed and went, well, first of all, not all of them are like that. Some are full of themselves, and that's why they have their channel, whatever. But there's a good solid ones that are enthusiastic, want to change the world. Really like the outdoors and want to share it. And also remember, guys, we used to be those people, but we just showed slideshows instead.
It's true.
So there's no resentment on your part, because I know in our industry it's happening more and more frequently. You mentioned the YouTubers, et cetera. Do you ever have that sense of resentment, in the sense that you say to yourself, well, I had to go out there and actually do this stuff. I mean, the only way that I could get by was to go and immerse myself in the outdoors and learn the hard way, and trial and error, and, get the bites, the burns and the cuts and the bruises, to be able to share that with audiences. These guys come in and it's like boom, 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 2 seconds, on the keyboard, and they've got answers that took you 30 years to get. Is there any resentment there at all?
There are sometimes there was a resentment. I'm very rare with that, because I really like helping, especially young people, because, I don't want to be that old guy, get off my lawn. Right. But at the same time, I call it bush time, because what will happen, there will be someone starting and they'll say, oh, writing a book is a lot of work. I don't know if I'll do that. I went, well, that's why there's not a lot of books out there. Like, good luck to you. Yeah. And, I'm not catching those brookies that you're catching. I go, what, do you want me to put the lure on for you? Like, it took me years to find that trout hole. Right. So there was a resentment in that way. But at the same time, those people don't last, because they're in it for a different reason. The carrot in front of totally different carrot. And I find now there's a lot of the young YouTubers that went in thinking they're going to make a fortune just by going on a canoe trip and filming it. Well, and they did it, but then that wasn't the carrot. The canoe trip wasn't the carrot. Right. And now they're all gone. So
what about you?
It's changing.
Any resentment to the YouTubes, because you brought it up, so and you mentioned the fishing guys.
I do. It only because I'm jealous. I guess maybe it's not resentment. I'm jealous, because when we were learning, our trade in this business, it was bricks and mortar, and you had to use a chisel to cut stuff out, even mapping, location.
I mean, big time. Yeah.
I guess I'm jealous or resenting the fact that somebody now can just go online and within the snap of his fingers, her fingers, get answers that I still don't have yet. Do you know what I mean? And if there's a reason, I often think, like, where would we be today had we had the technology back then?
Right. Yeah.
The
resources.
So
exactly.
It's the old comparison. Who's the best hockey player in the world? Was it Wayne Gretzky? Was it Gordie Howe? Or one of the new kids that's up and coming? Well, the truth of the matter is they're living in totally different eras, and it's hard to make the comparison. So what I just said about where would we have been with the technology that's available today when we were kids, it's not a fair comparison to when you really think about it, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's weird. Yeah. I have a bit of a resentment. Sure, for sure I do. Because I would have loved it. I would have loved GPS back then, if nothing else, just to know where you were. And I'm sure you're the same way, Kevin, because GPS plays a major role in your day-to-day activities. Yeah,
just like even satellite communication with the outside world. Yeah. Yeah, I'll give you a good example, a good case scenario. So this year, my buddy, we both turned 60. So when we turned 50, I did a really silly trip with him called the meanest lake in Algonquin, 102 portages, and and he's right. So when we turned 60,
hang on, stop. Just to get our heads and listeners' heads around what you just said. How long is a trip that involves over 100 portages?
It was 68 kilometers. We went all around Algonquin. It took us 3 weeks.
Oh my God. Nonstop. Like when I say nonstop, obviously you're bedding down at night, but otherwise every day you're on the move, right?
Yeah.
3 weeks.
Yeah, we did it because we turned 50. Well, he didn't want to do the trip. I wrote a best-selling book on it. It was really kind of cool because
that's awesome.
But this year he goes, okay, it's my turn to plan the trip. You can't plan it. I went, oh, come on. I plan every
Can you blame him?
Yeah, I write guidebooks for everything. He goes, oh, no. And that drove me insane because I didn't know where we're going. He goes, okay, we're, mark 16 days in your calendar. And the quick version is we went north. He picked me up. We started driving north, and I'm driving north. And then I'm thinking, we're going to Red Lake. So we're going to Wabakimi or Woodland Caribou. I go, we've done that before. So where is he taking us? We get to Red Lake, and then it gets out the maps, and there's the forest fires everywhere. Remember this? And they're evacuating everybody. And of course, he's talking to the pilot, and he goes, well, we can go here. Well, they changed their plans. And when changed their plans, I don't even know where we're going. Change their plan. So we go and we fly north to Pasquay Park. So it's up towards James Bay Lowland. And we're in the bush plane for 2 hours and 40 minutes. So that just shows you how long.
That's huge.
It is. And thank goodness I didn't have to pee. Like 2 hours and 40 minutes, right? So the pilot lands us on this lake that has no name. And he goes, okay, the fires aren't here yet. But use your satellite communication to call me in if you need help. Thank goodness we had that, right? Because, but what happened was we had to alter our plan. I didn't know anywhere where we're going. And it drove me insane that I didn't have any control over this trip. But what happened, and you love this part, is that the portages that were supposed to be cut that he found in an old book didn't exist. Imagine this. It took us 6 days to travel 4 kilometers.
Holy
we had to cut our own way through. We had to cut through alder and stuff like that because nothing existed. And they were all small ponds. Okay, they're all small ponds, so no plane could come and get us. We didn't fish for 8 days because all we had to do, we spent our time cutting our trail out.
Oh my God. Is it possible to do that without today's technology?
Yes, it is. But what's really kind of cool is so people back at the outfitters, they were like kind of worried about us. And the old outfitter said, don't worry, these guys have bush time. They know what they're doing.
Right.
Right? And that was a good feeling because we're old. I mean, I didn't want to do that. I don't want to travel 4 kilometers in 6 days. I'm old. It hurt. I lost 12 pounds for heaven's sakes.
Oh my God.
And the kicker was we didn't even start fishing till the 8th day. And the fishing there is like you literally put your toe in the water and you kind of bike.
It's nuts. Yeah. What do you guys bring food wise?
Yeah.
I mean, you got your fish obviously, and no matter where you go, Algonquin or wherever. But for 3 weeks,
8 days without fishing.
Yeah. So for 3 weeks, and in 3 weeks' time, you've got to be packed. You have food for that. What is the third week food that you would be eating? Is there preserved stuff? What would you bring along?
Yeah, I dehydrate my own, so you can get those packages. So you can get. They're expensive and they're good though. They're expensive, but I just dehydrate my own. And you don't have to need a dehydrator. You can do it in your oven at a low temperature. So you get salsa sauce, spaghetti sauce, curry sauces. You get your noodles. You dry your vegetables. You dry your meat, jerky meat, whatever, and you just soak it in water before you eat it. And I eat really well. It sounds disgusting, but I'm telling you, you watch the video. The whole video series is up on my Casey Happy Camper. And we even watch the meals we're making. And yes, we eventually started eating fish.
You dehydrate your own. I'm curious about that. So by using an oven, basically you're not cooking it, but you're just, I'm assuming the water evaporates out of whether it's pasta or meat or potatoes or whatever it is. And then you just take that's now hard dry, and you put it in a bag.
Yeah, and you just have to remove the moisture so mold won't form, right? So then you can have it for like 2 or 3 years till the apocalypse happens, right? So you'd be fine. And it's the same things you would get at the store, you would buy at the store, but you have more control over taste and stuff. Make a great shepherd's pie. I make a great curry. That sort of thing. So I don't starve out there. Now, for that long of a trip, though, that's a lot of weight. But you can listen to weight because there's no liquid, right? Except the whiskey.
Let's not forget that.
Oh, boy. Oh, God.
I got to ask you this. So, and I don't mean to keep going back to technology. I'm going to make an assumption that you guys had all the latest gadgetry in terms of being able to map your way out, especially through the first part where there were no portages left. Did you at any time after the experience say to yourself, I probably couldn't have done it without my GPS, or I couldn't have done it without, one of the little pieces, the little trinkets that you brought with you? Or did you miss the fact that you couldn't do that whole trip just with a compass?
Well, I don't think we would have been able to do it. I'll tell you what happened on that trip, because I do believe in all that technology. I'm not negative towards it at all. I do know that some people just starting out look at it too much because they don't have bush time yet. But what happened to us at one point, again, these portages didn't exist. So we're cutting alder. And I told my buddy, the First Nations people did not go here. There's no sign at all for 100 years that I can see that they actually went here. The only way, and this is the lowlands, right, towards James Bay, is to find a high ridge. They went on the high ridge. So I bushwhacked up a high ridge. And I found a blaze. And we're all excited. This is day 5 of the day 6 cutting through all this stuff. I found a blaze. And he goes, "Where's the blaze?" And I pointed up, and it's 6 feet high up. Right, there's a birch cut and then marked, and he goes, "That's not a blaze." Yes, it is in the wintertime because it's 6 feet of snow. Right, wow. So they travel here in the winter. They did not travel here in the summer. So yes, there was a trail, but it was a winter trail. So to do that, it has to be up the ridge. That's not it. And our GPS wasn't showing that. It was called bush time.
Yeah, that's a signal, right? That somebody would have left behind. Wow, that is great. Any obviously, when you're that deep into it. Any wild animal stories? Did you see anything, hear anything?
It's the best place to see a wolverine, so that's really why I wanted to go. We did not see wolverine. We saw everything else, except the caribou. We didn't see any caribou. We saw eagles. They were like gulls. They were there. Right. They're everywhere. We did see, actually, the coolest thing was actually I saw a mink, and it was the size of an otter. So I thought, that's an otter. Ooh. I looked at it. I go, well, that is a mink, and it swam past us and went up a ridge and looked at us, but it had a white bib. I go, well, that's a pine marten. I go, that's not a pine marten. So I could not fathom what this thing was. I went back and talked to some biologists, and they're like, yeah, we have no clue what you just saw.
Oh, wow. That's
really.
That's kind of interesting.
They even said, they go, you sure it wasn't wolverine? And it wasn't big enough for a wolverine. And he goes, well, it just came out of the water. It would look smaller. So it just that mystic. The one cool thing about that trip, too, is that it wasn't until day 8 of 16 days we started learning from the land. We started not being stupid white people. Like the idea of actually, sorry to say, but we actually started slowing down and not being in a rush to get out. Because, right? And that calmed us down with the fires, because we saw smoke coming, and the only way to get out is get our GPS on or our sort of satellite communication and get a pilot to come and get us. But the lakes up there, only a few of them have names. And what really helped us, there was a Big Hook outfitting. They have a remote lodge up in the park. So we actually paddled to them because we were way out of the place where we're supposed to go. But I thought if we get there, then we'll be able to get a plane to his place. And yeah, Ryan, I hope you're listening to the show, whatever you saved our butts. So thank you very much.
Wow, that's insane.
That's such an exciting adventure. I'm listening to him, and I'm foolishly,
one that I don't think I'd want to be on. To be honest with you,
I would.
Yeah.
I would. I'm foolishly listening to him and foolishly saying to myself, you know what? That would be so cool to do. I think that would last for about 3 or 4 hours.
I was going to say until you needed porcelled, then you'd be really screwed.
Until the sound of the plane is completely gone. And then it would. But the adventure it's such a thrill.
Did you guys film that? And is it on YouTube now, or is it going to be coming up? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's on Casey Happy Camper Passway. There's 8 parts of it.
Passway. Okay.
Yeah, and the first 2 or 3, you can see the anxiety in me. In fact, there was a scene where I just was not doing well. I'm high anxiety, and I have an idea to be that far north with no way getting out, with smoke around you.
Yeah.
And there was a campsite. There was lowland, so to find a campsite, and there's no campsites. You have to make a site, right? And there's only this one hump of land, and we needed to stay there for a couple of days to cut through. And I looked over, and there's all the moss dug up. I'm thinking, oh great, a bear came here to find ants, and we're like, what? So I go over, and there's fresh bear poop and a little bit of steam coming out. Well, this is the only place we can camp. So we stayed there for 2 nights, actually 3 nights. We stayed there for 3 nights, and every night I could hear the flies buzzing around, around dead meat. I'm thinking, well, where are they coming from? And nothing happened to us, but it was one of those things where, like, yeah, whose idea was this? Yeah, it was my buddy's.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God.
How much gear? See if you can maybe paint us a bit of a picture here. How much gear would 2 guys going on a trip like that, a 3-week, outback trip like that? How much gear do you take with you?
Yeah, so you'd have the same gear that you would do for even a weekend or even in 5 days. So you have the tent, you have the tarp, you have your sleeping bag, you have your clothes, and very limited clothes. You have what you have on, and then your wool sweaters and stuff. Now, mind you, again, this was actually the end of August, early September. I remember one day it was snowing, the mosquitoes were still biting us.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was such a bizarre.
I was going to ask about bugs, about mosquitoes.
Oh yeah, no, they were bad. But it's the food. It's the food that takes the weight. And we have that in a barrel. So the greatest thing is my buddy, he owns that recreational barrel works company. So I can find a barrel because he's got them, right? And we also carried our pack. I used a 2 courier pack system which almost like with a top. It's almost like what the Voyageurs did hauling the furs, right? So I put it on the top with the 2 packs on top. So, yeah.
How big of packs are we talking? 100 liter to 120?
60 at max.
60 at max.
Yeah.
Wow.
What's that? Okay.
Because he wants to keep them small in size.
What is that? What's that big on your back or bigger?
Yeah.
See, because I'm picturing when we did, one I remember the most is when we went to Ursa's place, Northern Rockies Lodge in BC, and the hunters, he would fly the hunters in. They all had packs, they were friggin' huge. They come this high off their backs, you know what I mean? So I was wondering if that's what he had to carry for. But it'd be impossible to walk through the bush.
They had the portage, right? Those guys had the luxury.
They go make a camp somewhere, and then
as soon as they get off the plane, they're probably
he said,
there.
some of them said they had to walk a while to get their spot, but I just didn't know. I couldn't trying to fathom how you can carry that thing.
Well, one of the problems with this, you can imagine if I had this and trying to break through the woods like they had to do, what would happen?
You never get through the woods.
This would be
and you got a canoe. You got to do it. You got so much to carry with you. I mean, I'm assuming you make multiple trips sometimes, or would you?
Yeah, we do 2 trips. I don't do one trip. I'm not a big guy. I can go all day, but I can't carry heavy weight. So, yeah.
What'd you use for freight? What were freighter, a canoe? What?
Prospector, a 16-foot Prospector.
16-foot.
Yeah. Well, they're actually based in London, Novacraft. Yeah,
I know them well. I
I use a blue canoe, so the trout don't see me paddle over them.
There you go. That's why you're the happy camper, because you got it all figured out. Eh?
When you finally, on that trip, when you finally got to fish, and you said there was fishing, you put your toe in the water. Was it walleye and pike, or was it trout, or what were you after? And give us some.
Yeah, it was walleye and pike. I missed the trout, to be quite honest. But yeah, the walleye, it was good pike and walleye. After that, all crazy things, we ended up getting windbound on this one big lake for 3 nights. So we had to fish from shore. We couldn't get out of the water. Well, we caught fish, but they weren't like huge. I caught a bunch of pike. I did catch one nice pike. We got it in the boat, and I lost one that I'd never seen a pike so big, but I didn't get on camera. I swear it was like over half the size of the canoe.
Wow.
I didn't want to land it, actually. I didn't want to land it.
And who's going to argue with it, right?
Exactly.
All right. So just between us girls, when you get 2 guys in that environment, and there's a lot of fatigue, there's a lot of stress, there's all this going on, how much of your time is spent either arguing or maybe in your own mind saying, this son of a bitch, what's he thinking? Why isn't he picking up that? And why isn't he good? Like, is there any of that infighting going on between you guys when you lose your crap? You know what I mean?
If there was ever a time that would happen, it would be that trip. But because I've been friends with my buddy Andy for years, and we've done a lot of trips together, we get through it by humor. We laugh our buns off on those.
Yeah. I get
It's
it.
our fault for being there, so we just laugh it off. And when I fall over, I fell over and I actually ripped the crotch of my pants. So and that was on day 4. So the rest of the trip, I had no crotch in my pants, right? And he just every morning, good, Kevin, can you turn the other way, please?
Cover that shit up. That's funny.
What your hours, were they based on more on fatigue, or was it weather, or was it light dependent? Like, give us a sense.
Lots of light though in the summer up there,
Yeah.
right? You'd have all kinds of daylight, I would think, right?
Yeah. And once we got free of the problems with the portages, then we had to make distance and time.
Right.
So we were paddling until half hour before sunset. Okay, now we'll make camp, and that took a while because we again had to cut the bush.
By the
right?
way,
Yeah.
that what he just said, you listen to it, you say, "Oh, that'd be great." Spend the whole day
No.
paddling down a lake. That has got to be. I'd rather
Stressful,
portage, to be honest with you, than to make one of those long traverses across a big body of water in a canoe and all my gear and stuff. That's me. It's hard. It's hard on parts of your body that you don't even know you have to use when you're paddling.
Oh yeah, I'm 60 and I got huge arthritis problems. I also suffered from vertigo, bipositional vertigo, and that kicked in at the time. But I had meds for it. All these old things, right? Yeah. And mind you, by day 10, I was in shape. I got back, and so they weighed us. They weighed our gear and weighed us before we got on the plane, right? You guys done that?
Yep.
And when we got back, I go, "Hey, weigh me again." And I lost about 18 pounds.
Holy shit.
Imagine that in 16 days.
That's a good little weight loss program right there. And you set up, you get to learn the bush, and you get to lose some weight.
Think about it. All you're doing is working out. Basically, it's like a constant
and
workout.
Eating right. You're not
eating small amounts, eating good quality food, and then more importantly, you're burning it every day.
Yeah.
Every day. Incredible. How long would you guys sleep at night? What's kind of the norm?
Well, it all depends on what we had to do the next day. If we were windbound, we'd actually have a sleep in. But no, we get up right at sunrise, and basically because that's the best time to paddle because it's not windy, right?
Right.
I got to say though, there was one time, so we were windbound on this point, and for 3 nights, and that the second night or second morning, we hear the wind and we're back in the bush and the tarp is just flapping. And he's looking at me and I'm looking at him. I go, who's going to go out and fix this? And of course I lose the coin toss. So I go out, and right then there are chairs. We have camp chairs, and they
have camp chairs.
I feel a fool. I'm not.
You were roughing it, for God's sake.
Where's he going to sit in when he drinks his whiskey, damn it? He's got to have something like that. Jeez. Give the guy a break.
But the chairs got wrapped up in the rope of the tarp, and they're flying up in the air like a bungee castle, right? And I said, get out of here. Get out of your tent. We got to, oh, you're lying, Callan. Well, you have to go to the videos and watch that scene. I've never seen a chair fly up so high into the air.
Wow.
Really? Oh my God.
And that scares the hell out of you because all you're thinking is, oh my God, I'm in the middle of nowhere. This is the end, right?
Yeah.
This is it for me.
That's crazy.
I think I shared with you on one of our previous radio shows, Kevin, I had a situation where we were portaging in Algonquin Park with some buddies, and I think it was the second night or maybe the third night into camp. The weather was starting to get bad as we bedded down for the night, but about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, it was full. All I could describe it as is full hurricane weather, right? The winds were just crazy to the point where we spent the next 3.5 hours holding stuff down so that the wind wouldn't take it away. Because, I mean, it's all essential stuff that we had to keep, right? We weren't expecting this. If you're expecting it, you kind of put stuff strategically placed in areas where you can strap it down. But all of our stuff was just blowing away. And so we spent the whole night holding tents and tarps and poles and coolers and like you name it. We were trying to, mitigate what was the inevitable, and that is going to be a disaster until we finally saw that sun coming up. And I'll never forget that first ray of light. And even though it was still windy, you kind of felt okay. You know what I mean? So you guys, the two, and this was like 8 of us on that trip. So for you guys, just the 2 of you, that must have been just horrifying. I mean, because you don't know what the net result's going to be when it's all over, right?
No, but the only thing, again, we go back to the very beginning, it's about bush time. I am comfortable in the woods. I should do, I'm less hyper out there. In fact, I'm quite calm. I don't even talk much. But that was the only thing that made us calm. The only anxiety was at night when you worried about the fires coming. Because and there was one night where the moon came up and it was a fire moon, but we actually thought it was the forest igniting.
What's a fire moon?
It's just a massive moon that was like golden orange. But it came through the spruce, and we're in the tent, and Andy goes, this isn't good, guys. This isn't good.
Wow.
But it wasn't a fire. And we're just worried because we're in the small pond. So there's no way. The only way we would have had to escape is go back through those portages we'd cut to escape into the lake that we landed on originally. And we didn't want to do that.
We experienced something like that last season. Was it last season or Quant's Lake?
Oh, yeah.
When the smoke was finally upon us.
Yep.
And I remember
the
all
whole
I
sky
could.
was all
Oh,
orange.
it was terrible. All I could think of was, well, you know what? There's no reason to panic because all we have to do is just go out on the lake and just hunker down on the lake. It's not like the flames are going to, get to us in the middle of the lake. But yeah, it's kind of a strange feeling when you know that
it was weird, and
remember?
and that trip there too, Kevin, and to the audience, as that smoke comes in, the planes can't come in to get you.
That's
the problem right there. Is that you are not going to get saved in that day, or if it was something that was immediate. But yeah, it was. I remember the sky was just orange that morning. Remember that?
It was
weird.
freaky.
It was freaky. Yeah. So.
I think nature reminds us of the intrinsic values of wilderness, that we're really not that important when it comes down to it. You guys don't be on big lakes and big storms, right? And you're so vulnerable.
Man,
I'd be lying to you, and Pete knows this. I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you. I have a bit of a perversion, and that is
you got that right.
That is that I love that moment when all of this energy and nature and you kind of come together. I would be one of those storm chasers, those guys who drive around looking for tornadoes, because I do love being in the middle of that craziness for that second of total loss of control. I do love it.
You feel alive.
Oh my God. It's crazy. It's crazy.
You feel alive before you're going to die.
Right. Well, I think that's probably why. That's probably why. Kevin, I hope you don't.
I got a quick question for Kevin. We're talking summer, a lot of summer camping, and there's all seasons. In the fall, do you hunt at all? Do you bring a gun and shoot for ducks for food, anything like that?
I used to hunt. In fact, in my memoir, it's funny. When I lived in the Sioux, when I actually lived up north, I would hunt, and I haven't for a long time. But there was a photo of me when I'm like in my 20s, and I got a grouse in my hand. There's blood all over my hands, and that's in my memoir. And I had some people shocked that I hunted. I went, what's your problem? And then just this weekend, we went on this canoe trip in the Kawarthas, and I told everybody to wear blaze orange.
Right.
And the other guys weren't hunters. They're like, well, that's not right. They should be hunting here. They go, they have every right to hunt here. And we have every right to actually protect ourselves by putting orange on.
Yeah, no kidding.
But it's like sort of closed-minded individuals. But it is interesting. People were shocked that I would hunt. Yeah.
Would that not be good practice anyways? Like, for example, the trip you just described to us, would it not be good practice to wear something bright in the event of, a mishap, whether you're lost or whether you're injured?
Yeah,
would you not be further ahead wearing, for example, maybe blaze orange should be the standard color of folks who go in the outback, regardless of whether there's hunting season on or not?
Yeah, there's a lot of campers. In fact, it was a trend at one time not to wear colors, all to wear green and brown, so you blend with the environment. Right. No way do I do that. I mean, my tarp is 4 colors. Actually, it's the First Nations 4 colors, and a pilot will see that. They won't see a green tarp.
Right.
And yeah, I'm a happy camper, so I'm bright colored everywhere, and my pack is bright red, and I don't try to blend in because I want to be found when they're. And you talk to the pilots about when they try to find you. And it's terrifying when they're like, yeah, a mirror on your compass, we'll never see that, Kevin. We'll never see that. And if at least we know maybe where you could be, we could maybe see you, but the chances, and when you're up in the air and you're looking down, it's just, especially there, when we, again, imagine going 2.5 hours in the bush plane from Red Lake.
Oh my God.
Seeing nothing except bush.
Every time we fly into places, we're constantly looking down. I am too. And I know, Pete, we discussed it in the past. You're looking down there and you're saying, my God, what would ever happen if this plane went down? Mm-hmm. Because, there's just nothing, right? Just nothing. And it always goes through your mind. Could I make it out from a place like that? Well, in fact, that's what you guys did.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I didn't know that. It's sometimes smart not to know much about anything. When because we're flying back out, right? There was another pilot, and great pilot, great guy, and so we're flying, and he's looking at his watch all the time. And I figured out at that time there's 3 fuel systems in the plane, and so because of the first flight, the other pilot Sean told me that. But I'm looking at the fuel. I should never have done that. I'm looking at the fuel. I'm thinking, because we're in the air for a longer time. It took us longer to get back because of the winds. And I'm looking, and he's like looking at his watch, and then we finally land, and he goes, "Never flew that far in my life," and we landed on fumes.
Oh God.
That's something terrifying when you hear the pilot saying, "I've never done this before," regardless of what it is.
That explanation that Ange did and what Kevin's talking about to the audience is that you just really have never. You can't imagine it until you see it from a plane, looking down, and the vastness. And if you see a lake or something, it actually breaks it up. It actually gives it a kind of a better picture. But when you look that way, and it's all trees, and it's all bushy trees, and it's all like, you would never see anything. If it was a moose running through there full tilt, you'd never see him. You know what I mean? It's just so thick and so broad and so expansive. It's just, it's insane how much. And that's everywhere in the north.
Everywhere you look.
Probably this whole country, you know what I mean? North of all the cities, it's just insane until you get to no trees, but it's pretty cool. It's impressive, that's for sure.
I often say to myself, you know what? There's got to be other living organisms that we have no idea even exist.
Sam Squanch.
Exactly. Down there somewhere. Yeah. Because you would never know it.
You wouldn't, no.
You would never know it. Just before I forget, because we've got some questions from the listeners actually that we want to run by. Before we do that, though, just to tie into what you were just saying, we had a similar experience one time flying into over the Amazon, flying to an outpost camp in the Amazon. We were flying from Sao Paulo, Brazil to, I don't know, it was like a 4-hour flight up to the top end of the Amazon. Where it comes out of Venezuela, I believe. Anyways, we're halfway through the flight, and somebody noticed that we were trailing fuel off of the wing.
Oh no!
And we tapped on the pilot's shoulder, and had him look at that. And all of a sudden, you could tell that he was in scramble mode because he started pulling out paper maps.
Oh yeah.
Not GPS, not electronic. He started pulling out maps from under his seat and opening them up in front of him, and he's looking, because down below there is nothing but canopy, Kevin. Like nothing for as far as you could see around you. It's just canopy. So he's looking for ideas, I guess, from the map to see which direction he could veer off to get down before we crashed. And this lasted for about half an hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah, it wasn't a huge fuel leak. It wasn't like a hose coming up, but it was a leaking. We were losing our fuel
off the wings, right? Anyways, we had no idea what was. There was no communication. He's in panic mode, so we're not going to start disturbing him. We know what's going on, and so we waited out, and finally he starts bringing it down, and we're thinking, oh yeah, okay, well obviously he's out of fuel. And we're going in. That was what we were all thinking. So brace yourself, boys, because we're going into the trees. And I'm thinking all kinds of weird stuff, and the Tarzan movies and all that stuff. Anyways, he found a clearing, and we thought, okay, well, at least we're not going to crash into trees. But as we got down on top of it, it was a village. It was a village, and it had a little dirt path in the middle of it, and he landed the plane on this little dirt path in the middle of the jungle on the Amazon, and got down there, and he taxied, and of course everybody came out of their huts and stuff to see what the hell is going on, right? And he taxied down to the end of it like he had been there 100 times. Got down to the end of it, and there's a gas pump. There is an old gas pump at the end of this village road.
Yeah.
And he pulls over. This was like a commercial. It would have been a great commercial. And everybody from the village helped him push it, and ourselves push the plane a little bit, because the pump was a little bit off of the dirt road. Pushed it over, and they got the pump and filled it. The best part was, when it was all said and done, he pulls out an American Express, and they wrote up the thing on his AMX. It was the coolest thing I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, those 20
story.
minutes, those 25 minutes of not knowing, we were done.
Yeah, it was kind of scary.
Toast. Yeah. Totally toast.
Of all places, the Amazon.
And it might have been our first trip to the jungle, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was. So. It was that catfish paella trip, I think is what it was.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
There's a place that if you haven't.
Oh, don't go camping there, Kevin.
There's a place that you need to go camping, buddy.
You will be the unhappy camper right there. I'll tell you that right now.
All right. We got some listener questions, if you don't mind answering a few for us, hopefully.
Okay.
They're brought to you by Sail. Sail, the outdoor stores that we're all so familiar with. It's your home to all things hunting and fishing and camping, outerwear, soft goods, all kinds of stuff. Head on over to your local Sail store. If you don't have it, go to sail.ca, bookmark it actually on your website there. Mm-hmm. And they'll send you stuff right to your home. You can get up to 60% off on select items as we speak.
Very good. First question from Adam Cascone from Ontario. What is the absolute essential must-have in your cooler on your camping/fishing trip? And by the way, you can't say something obvious like beer. Think outside the box.
Or whiskey
in Kevin's case. Think outside the box, because beer would have been the first answer for sure.
Yeah.
But, okay, Kevin. Absolute essential in your cooler.
In your cooler, when I go in the backcountry, I don't have a cooler.
Well, I was going to say, define what a cooler is to Kevin. Right?
Yeah. Well, let's just say it's not a backcountry camping. Let's say it's more accessible camping for you. Something that you would be able to bring a cooler to. Let's just.
Well, I do go to the backcountry. We have a mini cooler that fits in the barrel. And then it compresses after that. So the first 2 days we have fresh food after that. But so a juicy steak for the first night for sure. And I freeze that in a marinade, so it'll last longer frozen. And I wrap it up in newspaper print and then put it in the cooler with an ice pack in. Sometimes I don't use the ice pack. Actually, I'll bring a beer frozen and use that as the as the ice pack.
Smart man. Smart man.
Interesting. Just so that we can have it on the record. So if you've taken frozen meat in to the Outback before.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there a certain period of time that you can consume that meat without any worries of it going off or maybe even harming you from a health standpoint?
It depends on the meat. So the steak, I wouldn't eat that the second day. The first day, if it's frozen,
Really?
Wow.
it's solid frozen, yes, I'll have it the second day. But
you're worse than my wife.
I was going to say, I was hoping he'd say, a week, 10 days, because I wanted my wife to hear this.
Exactly.
Because after a couple of hours, in her opinion, it's
got to throw it in the
gone.
garbage. There's all that money gone. Yeah.
Wow.
But chicken, I wouldn't even bother bringing. I wouldn't trust chicken. But ham steaks, I'd have those even the fourth morning if it's not a heat wave. Eggs, I get eggs from a farmer because they're not washed. So they have the stuff around them to keep pressure, and then I actually put them. I put them in an egg container, and I duct tape them under my canoe seat.
Nice.
Because they don't break that way. So
nice idea. Can you dehydrate meat like steak, for example? Could you dehydrate it?
Yeah, for sure. I do jerky. I have a dehydrator. I do it in my oven too, but jerky, but also hamburger. So you do hamburger, cook the hamburger, and then rinse it in a spaghetti strainer to get that grease out of there, and then dehydrate it in your oven at low temperature, like 110 degrees overnight, and it looks like cardboard. and then you put it back in a bag and soak it back, and great, the dogs are the dogs. I do that, and I've done chicken before, but also you can bring canned food if you want, but then you're going to have to put the can out, right? So
right. And it's weight too. Right. The extra weight of the metal can is not worth it.
Except Spam. I'll bring Spam. Remember that stuff?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I love it. Right up.
I would do
you
nothing.
Love that stuff, really,
buddy. If it were possible,
Spam sandwich.
If it were possible,
with mustard,
I would take Spam. Remember Click and Clam? I think Click and Cam.
Click for sure.
I would take those three. I would do nothing but pack them for an outback trip. If the weight was not an issue, because I know they're going to keep forever. You can open it when you need to eat it, and they're sized so that you can, eat the whole thing in that one go around.
Helping,
and you never have to worry about preserving it. You just put that baby in the backpack and off you go.
That's true. I guess if you're hungry as hell, it wouldn't matter, right?
Well, you don't like the taste of it?
Nah, I never liked. Maybe it was psychological. It was as a kid, I wasn't a fan. I
loved, and the beauty about taking it in that environment is that you can either eat it raw right out of the can on its own, or you could cook up some wonderful meals. I don't know whether you're aware of it or not. You can make some wonderful meals out of this stuff.
No, I'm not aware of it.
In a frying pan over a fire? Yeah. Oh, my God. I'm telling you, I'm getting hungry just thinking about it.
I'm going to go catch a walleye, piss on it, and I'm going to eat some fish or something.
Dale Steele Nikolov from Nova Scotia. He wants to know, what's the necessary rules to assure a successful and safe fishing/camping trip in the wilderness? What are the necessary rules? Give us, say, 5 rules that you have to live by if you're going out there.
Yeah, first of all, communication with all your partners, and ask them why they are going and what they want out of the trip. I remember doing a 5-day trip in Algonquin, and a new guy went with us because someone bailed, and nobody asked him if he fishes, right? And it was a fishing trip. Like every spring we go down the Nipissing or wherever, and he goes, "Yeah, this is kind of boring. Are we going somewhere, guys?" And we're, "No, actually, we're not." And we should have communicated, and that was a huge error. That was a bad trip. The other is you start the trip when you start the trip. And don't change the date 10,000 times over, right? Oh. And also you go as long as you say you're going to. So if we're doing a 5-day trip, we don't go out on day 3 because you're homesick. Because we worked too hard to actually go for 5 days. And so don't be in a rush to go back. The other is actually, I find a mixture of people are far safer, but also this is going to be controversial, but I think sometimes doing a solo trip is a lot more safe.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, and the reason why is you're so terrified you're going to die, you're not being stupid. So.
I like that. You know what? I can relate to that because when I fish, this time of year is fall. Right now we're recording this. When I fish this time of year by myself, every step I take in the boat, I'm very careful. I'm more cognizant of what maybe if you go in that water. So you might have a point there because I just put it in my mind, okay, be careful here, dum-dum.
But what happens? If
the inevitable
at some point in your life could happen.
What happens if 2 guys are in a boat and you fall in?
Well, at least you got one guy who can help the other guy.
If you both fall in?
Oh, if you both go in, then you're idiots.
Just saying,
you're both idiots.
Wear your life jacket. Anyway, I'm just saying, Kevin, I know what he's thinking there.
Are you saying to me right now, are you endorsing solo camping?
Oh, God, yeah, for sure. It's beautiful.
Wow, that goes against...
You can go wherever you want. You can eat as much Spam as you want. You can fish all as you want. You don't have any conflict except for yourself. I mean,
with the modern conveniences in terms of safety that are out there now, I guess that's not such a bad idea. I mean, growing up when I was a kid, you never would have recommended solo camping for the simple reason that if something happened to you out there, you're done. Because nobody knows where you are, nobody can find you. Like all of those conveniences that we like, the Spot, or what's the Garmin version of the
InReach?
The InReach, that you can take with you. You just push a button, and everybody knows where you are, and they know that it's a 911 call, and they can come and help you. But without that, I don't know, man. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
So you're right. Nowadays, if you had that InReach, that right there alone would give you a real sense of security, I would think, right? At least.
You break a leg, and now you can message somebody that you've broken your leg, and here's your coordinates, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We had both those on the Pasquay trip. I had a spot 4, which you just push the button, emergency, whatever. But there's also a button you push every night saying, I'm here and I'm okay.
Yeah.
So my partner would get it. Actually, 3 other people would get it, and they'd say, okay, he's okay. Now, when we're stuck for 3 days on that one lake,
right,
everybody's well, what's going on? But the thing is, it's not saying we're injured. We're here and we're okay. So everybody at home had assumed, well, they're okay. Something's gone wrong. They just thought, But then Andy had the device where he can communicate by texting.
Yeah.
And that worked great, because if we had to get a plane to come and to get us where they didn't know where we are, he could actually give them detailed information, and that was fine. But at the same time, it's like too much communication, right? Like, do you talk to your spouse every day when you're?
Oh, there you go. See, that's I agree with you. There's a happy medium there where enough is enough and too much is too much, right? In terms of communication.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people today are so connected that even an hour disconnected are starting to feel the anxiety of being alone, right?
Yeah. No, Andy didn't communicate with his wife for just chit chat. It was for safety reasons, whatever. But I have been on trip. There was one guy, he actually worked for the government. He was on a trip with us to do some studies, whatever, and he contacted his wife every night on the sat phone just to argue, like they didn't get along, right? And then we didn't have much battery left when actually we needed an emergency. We actually get an evac on that trip, and then we had a quarter battery left because he was talking to his wife and arguing, right? So,
oh my God,
don't you hate that?
Kick the shit out of him. Leave him in there for a bit.
And you wonder why I like solo tripping.
Yeah, exactly.
Last question, Mr. Bowman.
Last question comes from Daniel Nordstrom from Ontario. Advice for someone getting into Crown land camping. Ooh. How do I find access/boundaries?
Yeah, okay. The Crown Land Atlas that the government has is such a confusing website. If you're colorblind, good luck to you.
Really?
But I did put a video out on Casey Epic Camper. It's about 40 minutes long, and I go over the entire process of actually going on the Crown Land Atlas and finding out if you can camp there, what you can do there. But there's also some negatives on that too. It's like access in the wintertime, especially. Where are you going to park? I'm not going to park on the road because snowplows are going to knock into your. So you have to look into that. And there are a bunch of forums out there that people talk about. The only negative, and it's not a negative, trying to find Crown land through other people, you're not going to get it. It's like a trout stream. You're not going to get that information, right? Because we don't want everybody, especially when the pandemic happened. I had the blue canoe. People recognized my blue canoe, and they would follow me down the road knowing where, he's going to the spot. And I would actually go somewhere different, right? So, but Crown land, there's a Crown Land Atlas in Ontario. Every province has it, and you go to it, and it will show you this is Crown land, this is private land, this is First Nations land. And to get Crown land too, you're going to have to go, kind of Algonquin north. Don't try to find Crown land down by Sarnia. There might be some, but it's not. It's very limited.
Wow.
And so you do find it. You also have to look if it's landlocked. So you might find a Crown land lake, but everything around it is private, and you can't get to it. And that's you can't get to it because those people own that property, and that's probably what they figured. Nobody's going to go into this lake to fish because they can't, or you fly in, or you get dropped by a parachute. I don't know. But so when you go to the Crown Land Atlas, it will actually show there's a whole bunch of processes to go through to find out where the land is, and then you have to do your road work. To be quite honest, at the end of the day, once you figure that atlas out, then you actually go out and there was some place where I tried to find this one lake, and I went 5 times to try and find it and how to get to it for 3 years. And finally I found it, and there was walleye in it, and it was in the Kawarthas. I knew bass were in there, but there were like good 18-inch walleye.
Wow.
And but it took me 3 years to find that lake. So
wow. Are there any restrictions? I think it was you years ago kind of shed the light on this. Are there any restrictions on camping on Crown land? Is there a maximum number of days, for example, that you can legally camp on Crown land, or is it just have at it? If you can get in there, if you can find it, it's all yours.
Oh no, there's a lot of rules and regulations. I think it's 21 days. It might be 26. But I think it's 21 days. You have to move your structure, that being your tent. I don't think you have to move that far, but you have to move. So you also have to practice low impact camping and that sort of thing. Not like a provincial park, but I love Crown Land. To be quite honest, I love it. You're more free to be camping on there. And the other things you have to look at for Crown Land is that there's some Crown Land, and that's why I had to go to the Atlas, where you actually cannot camp because it's allocated for forestry or for whatever reason, and it will indicate that you can't camp there. So you have to look at that Atlas. And if the CO comes up to you and gives you trouble, it's like, and you say, I don't know. Well, sorry. It's like Steve Martin. I did not know armed robbery was illegal. If someone told me, I would never have done it. You can't do that.
That's a great example. I love it. Shit, that's good.
The fact or myth that as long as you are on water and not touching land, it's a wide open frontier for you when you're, out backpacking. You don't have to worry about private property.
So walking through a creek, let's say,
walking through or floating through, as long as you don't come ashore, it's perfectly legit, and you don't need permission.
It's very complex. So I learned that lesson. I paddled the entire Mississippi River last year, but our Mississippi from Bon Echo Park to the Ottawa River.
Yep.
Because in the 50s, it was a canoe route that even camps used. And it was the first actually recreational canoe route that was documented by the government. And it's still there. But then when I contacted the Conservation Authority, because they had a pamphlet on it, they said, well, people really don't do the whole river, Kevin, because of private land now. I went, how did that happen? Because actually in the 1800s, the Navigable Water Act was created on the Mississippi River. So two loggers were arguing. One guy made logging swifts and the other guy used them. He goes, well, you can't do that. Those are mine. So it went to court. And actually the federal and provincial government at that time created a Navigable Water Act. And this will help everybody. If you can navigate it by canoe or any other vessel, then it is owned by everyone. Right?
Oh, so I like that.
That's what I figured that. Yeah.
Yeah. There are places though where that doesn't. So if there's a dam controlled, so farmer has a dam to hold water back for the cattle, that has changed the navigable water. So is it still navigable, right? Well, if you actually have to portage around that dam, then you're portaging on their property.
Right.
So you can't do the route because you have to be on their land to portage. And that's what happened on the Mississippi River. So I would get to a portage and the water had changed, the levels had changed. So, the landowner came up and he goes, you can't be here. And I went, this is a canoe route that was developed by the government. And I don't see the issue. Now, the only thing is I wasn't a prick to him. But
that's
because
key.
of that, yeah, he said, go ahead. But he was like, we've had people just leave garbage, burn the fires, whatever. Mm-hmm. So he goes, I don't want this anymore. And that becomes the conflict. So in theory, what I could have done, and he couldn't have done anything to me, I could have walked that rapid as long as I was one chain to the left and one chain to the right. What a chain is during the 1800s, this land was surveyed by a physical chain that was 66 feet long, 20 meters, right? So yes, he owns the shoreline of 20 meters to the right and left, but if I stayed in the middle, he can't really do anything about it.
So you don't have to be afloat. You can walk the riverbed legally.
Yeah, but it has to be a navigable waterbed. So if it's a small little creek, is that?
Well, I mean, that's a great question. What's navigable? I mean,
if it's navigable, it's going to be too deep to wade in the center, probably.
I would think,
right?
I would think.
I would imagine, like the Mississippi for sure.
And that's why I spent like 3 decades of my life writing guidebooks, because a lot of those canoe routes were not going to be canoe routes anymore because the government didn't want to maintain them. Right. And I went, yeah, catch me if you can. And I started.
I love it. I love it. Hey, Kevin, to go back to Daniel's question, you mentioned it on one of your videos. Is there? And if he goes on to KC Camp or whatever your site is does
Happy Camper.
Happy Camper. Does he type in? What does he type in for finding that answer for the public?
The Crown Land
Crown
one?
Land, yeah.
Yeah, just go to KC Happy Camper Crown Land.
Okay.
Crown Land, I think it's called.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can tell a lot of people have the question because it's a lot of people have gone to that site. about the thousands, whatever. So I do show an example, which maybe I shouldn't have done. There was a lake in North Kawarthas. I said, look, I need to show one example. So here's a lake I found. It's called Adam Lake. This is how I found it. So I go through the process of how to find where I parked. I went through the whole process and actually what species are in there. So here's a website that'll tell you the species. Here's a website from the government that will show you when it was stocked and what it was stocked with. And so that video shows all that information. But I did happen to show one lake. I can't go back to that lake right now.
Really?
Why?
Well, the locals want to kill me.
Yeah.
And all the people from the city are going there. You might as well make it a park now.
It's funny you say that, because one of the tools we used to use back in the old days, one of the tools we used to use was the M&R back then, and they still do now. They used to put out a stocking schedule
program,
of lakes that they stocked, right? And 99.9% of those lakes are in Crown land. That was the beauty of it. So if you ever wanted to figure out what's Crown land, you find one of those stocking program maps and you say, oh, that lake is there because all around that is Crown land. Now, that doesn't mean that access to that land isn't privately owned,
right,
but the land immediately around that body of water was generally Crown land. So it's another little secret if you're looking for that kind of stuff.
I love those maps. I still have. And they got rid of them. I remember the day when they got rid of them, and I went into the Bancroft district office and I said, hey, I want this map. We're not giving it to the public anymore. We discontinued it. I went, well, you still have the master plan, and I have the right to have it. And yeah, they didn't like me.
I was going to say, did you set a precedence there? I mean, holy mackerel.
Well, I started writing guidebooks from a lot of my canoe routes were all Crown, like the York River in Bancroft. That was going to be provincial park at one time, but never was. But I did write it up as a route, and it starts at a non-operating park, which is Crown land. If it's a park that has no management plan, it is classified as Crown land. So you don't need reservations, you don't need to pay that sort of thing. So that's something everybody should know. So when I did the Copco River, for example, up in northern Ontario, that is a waterway park, but they don't have a management plan. So you can camp wherever you want, right? So there's no rules, no regulations. But with that, the York River, I went and paddled it and wrote up about it. And then I do remember that at the time, the M&R was very upset. They're like, well, what are you doing this for? I went, well, it should have been a park, maybe. Yeah. It's a great canoe route. And if you don't make it as a canoe, what else are you going to do with it? Oh, you might dam it, you might log it. And I'm not an environmental activist at all, but there's a certain point where, hey, don't touch my areas. Chinnakushi is a good example, up by Sudbury. And I worked in natural resources, so I knew they were mining for gold. They found gold on Wolf Lake. And so I promoted that place beyond belief. I told everybody about it by magazines, by radio, by book. And then the locals were just want to kill me. I went, if you don't promote it, someone else is going to use it for something else. Yeah. Right.
And usually it's that something else is not in your favor.
Wow. Interesting.
It just dawned on me, my friend, that
Kevin's a shit disturber?
Well, there's that too.
He's pretty good at that, it sounds like, lately.
But now that you're not gainfully employed, that means you got an awful lot of time on your hands, which means we could get you on this program a little more often.
Yeah. In fact, my whole thing is to do more media. I'm doing that and doing more video, to be quite honest, because my YouTube, it's half-assed, they say, right? I'm very hyper. I'm like squirrel. But the first thing I did is when I moved here, I did the Frontenac Challenge. So basically, it's 11 hiking loops, which is really weird for me because I'm a canoeist. So to me, a backpacking trail is the longest portage ever created. So
how true is that?
Yeah, good point.
But what I did is I did that, and I couldn't walk afterwards. But basically, you get a badge saying you did 160 kilometers, and you find codes that prove that you did it, and it was a good story. And I sold the story, and I probably made more money selling the story than if I taught for 2 weeks.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
My friend, we have got to cut you loose. This is the longest we've ever had you on this show, and so that means that we got to have you more often, not less, but more often. I want to thank you for joining us. Great stories, and anybody who's looking to be entertained in the outdoors, I highly encourage you to check it out. Casey, the Happy Camper. You've got YouTube channel, I'm assuming website that they can go to. Tell us where else can you be found?
Yeah, KevinCallan.com on the website, Casey Happy Camper. I'm the Happy Camper on CBC Radio, and I write regular for Explorer Magazine. I'm a blogger for them and a columnist.
Nice.
Yeah, and just any big show, I'm always presenting there, and I'm never serious. I am a very serious person, to be quite honest, actually, but there's a reason why I was tagged the Happy Camper. And really quickly, how I got tagged that is I was on my very first TV show, morning show, showing my first book that was called The Happy Camper, and it sold really, really well. And there was a whole bunch of camp devices, and the male host did not like camping. He's like, let's just get this over with. And one of the devices was this Whiz Easy. It's a device women use so they can urinate standing up. And so he picks it up. He goes, "What's this, Kevin?" I go, "It's a whistle. Give it a try."
No!
Love it. I friggin' love it.
The female host tells him what it is. He spits it out. He's furious with me. And then I get back. My colleagues are like, "What did you do that for?" Well, he didn't like camping. He deserved what he get. I don't really care. And the next day, awesome. I was on so many shows because they're like, "That's funny, man."
That's good.
Okay, he must still hate you, that host.
Oh, yeah.
On that note, my friend, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it. I urge everybody who wants to learn more about camping, if you're into camping already, this guy is your man.
For sure.
Definitely. Thanks, buddy. Talk to you soon. Kevin Callan, the Happy Camper, and I mean that. Even if you're brand new to it, I think it's so important that you start on the right path, and Kevin can put you on that right path without question. Absolutely. I wish I had him when I started camping.
Well, as we talked about earlier in our fishing days, if we had back then what we have now, and campers have Kevin right now, they have he's a great source of info, right? So and entertainment.
And entertainment as well. But yeah, no, I also urge people listening to this that maybe are sitting on the fence with trying that outback experience to sample it and see if it's for you. Don't wait any longer. Give it a whirl.
If you have an inclination, go for it. Yeah,
it's life changing. That first one, you'll never forget it. It'll be with you the rest of your life.
It's the outdoors. The outdoors changes people, right? It really does.
Big time.
No matter whatever you're doing, if you go for a walk outside of your house, you go for an hour walk, or all of a sudden there's just a different mind frame.
And the other thing is you can't get away from current situations in the outdoors. In other words, if you and I went out on a portage trip, you can't get away from the fact that we have to interact as human beings. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you change and you find yourself a little more laid back, a little.
Oh my God!
Everything is effortless. Everything seems so natural, so easy, and time is not an issue. So you kind of experience a whole new part of yourself that you probably don't even know exists. Anyways,
true.
Like I said, give him a whirl. KC, the Happy Camper, or KC Happy Camper, I guess is the actual name, and his name is Kevin Callan.
Yes,
that are it. I want to remind folks about the ongoing contests that are brought to you by J&B Cycle and Marine.
Come on now.
They're going on from now right through till Christmas. Don't know when you're consuming this episode, because that's the beauty of podcasts. We never know, but I would be remiss if I didn't remind you to go in and enter every single day.
How about a 9.9 Mercury 4-stroke for a prize?
I heard. Hello.
That's not a bad little prize, my friends.
And we have a bonus code there, actually, Pete, right in front of you.
The bonus code here?
Yeah,
there you go,
bonus
my
code
friend.
of the week for people who stuck around this long.
If you've stuck around this long, this week's code is, hey, I like this, camper. That's all caps, I'm going to say, CAMPER, camper. Type that in the bonus code section. 10 free entries towards your current giveaways. For those aren't in there yet, come on.
And that's for the 9.9 or
now.
Just in general?
That's for all of them. So we should have a Garmin Fishfinder up there now. We're doing a live scope again soon, too.
Oh, my God.
Hell yeah.
So this will get you entries into all those.
I heard Boat Motor Trailer was up and coming, too.
I know it's in the works.
I don't want to spread any vicious rumors.
Come on now.
That's what I'm hearing.
That'd be a nice one, wouldn't it? They're all nice.
I'll tell you what, just in case it does, and you don't want to miss it, keep an eye on it on fishingcanada.com for all of the latest contests and promotions that we have ongoing there. That are it. On behalf of the entire crew, he's Peter Bowman, Volva, Nick, and Dean Taylor, of course. I'm Angelo and Reno Viola. Thanks for joining us. Talk to you soon. This episode of Outdoor Journal Radio has been brought to you in part by the Invasive Species Centre, protecting Canada's land and water from invasive species. Freedom Cruise Canada, rent the boat, own the memories. J&B Cycle and Marine, your home for all things power sports, boats, and equipment. And Sail, the ultimate destination for your outdoor adventures.